So go to your book and go to lesson 4. So we're going to talk a little bit about assigning variables. So with initializing and declaring. So you can initialize integer I and then declare it to be equal to 3. This is totally fine. What you cannot do is you cannot write it as 3 equals I. So you know how like in math class your teacher always wanted the variable on the left side of the equal sign, even though x equals 3 is kind of the same thing as 3 equals x? Well, in programming, your computer is stupid. Computers don't understand the difference between, or that there really isn't a difference between I equals 3 and 3 equals I. So basically, you have to kind of baby your computer a little bit and always set it up in the right way. So you have to say I equals 3 instead of 3 equals I for your computer's sake. And we briefly talked about multiple declarations before, but let's go ahead and bring that to light. So go ahead and open Eclipse, and I'm going to make a new Java file. So file, new Java project. I'm going to call this lesson 4. It's my default location. Click finish. And then in lesson 4, make a new class. And I'm just going to call this lesson 4. And if you notice down here, so which method stubs would you like to create? Now that you have this all memorized, go ahead and check public static void main string args. So go ahead and make sure that's checked and finish. So now you notice that it pops in there. You don't have to type it every time. So I'm going to adjust my brackets. There's a comment in there to put together your method. So we're going to do that. Alright, so let's initialize double P. And I'm also going to initialize J. So we can do both of those at one line. So let's say that J is equal to 8.426. Okay, so if we compiled this right now, it wouldn't compile because we haven't done anything with P. It's totally empty. So one thing that you can do is you can set your variables equal to each other. So we have J is equal to 8.426. We can say that P is equal to J and close our parentheses. So now we have both of those set up. I'm going to do a system.out.print and we're going to print P. And let's see what we get. So if I run it, it prints P, and P is 8.426. So if P is equal to J, and J is equal to 8.426, then P is also. So let's switch to verify. So right now we said J was equal to 8.426, which is the same thing as saying like J is equal to, or P is equal to J. So if we switch it around and say J equals P, what we're doing here is we're basically saying 8.426 equals P, which is illegal. So if we run it, it has issues, we proceed with it, it does not like it. You even see a couple errors pop up here. The local variable may not have been initialized. So P has to be initialized. If you don't have P equal to J, it's basically not initializing your program. So we declared things on the same line. So I'm going to come here and put comment, so more than one declaration per line. So you can do that. You don't have to, you can. You can also initialize and declare on the same line. So if I wanted to say double Puma equals 47, lion equals 38, tiger, and giraffe equals 80.3. So you notice that we declared, and we also initialized. So we declared tiger, but we initialized puma, lion, and giraffe. So you can actually do this in your programs. So right now it's not happy just because we set them up. We haven't done anything with them yet. So just so you know, in the future, you can actually declare that you can also declare and initialize in the same line. So I'm going to make another comment, declare and initialize more than one per line. It can be a variety. If you remember back to algebra, you'll probably remember maybe being exposed to a thing called Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS. So PEMDAS is going to be your parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Remember back in math rules? So Java actually follows PEMDAS because it's a computer, and computers follow rules that are set up for it. So if you look in your book, we have some basic mathematic operations, and you can add, subtract. Multiplication is shift 8, your little asterisk. Division is your backslash, and we have the modulus. So the modulus is the percent sign, and basically it just gives you a remainder. So like if you did 5 modulus 3, 5 divided by 3 is remainder 2. So that's how you can deal with your math operations. And that'll let you do a lot of stuff in actual Java. So go ahead and we're going to go back into Eclipse. So back in our practice, I'm going to delete this second line. And I'm going to say that double P equals 2 plus 3. And the next line I'm going to print P. Okay, so when I run it, you see 5.0 because I put it in as a double. If I do 2 times 3, it'll give me 6.0. If you do 2 modulus 3, it gives you a 2 because it's 0, remainder 2. But if you do 2 divided by 3, your answer is 0 because it's not a full number. Now here's a little trick for you. If you put 3.0 instead of just 3 and you run it, it gives you 0.66666. So it basically tricks it into giving you the decimal answer instead of the whole number answer. And we'll talk more about this a little later too, but just for right now, kind of remember the modulus especially is out there. I know it kind of seems arbitrary, but trust me, it is very, very useful. So let's play a little bit with how PEMDAS would work in your program. So we're going to leave system.out.print P. And we're going to make this, say, like 5 plus 10 times 3 minus 4. All right, so if you calculate that in your head, remember, multiplication comes before anything else. So 10 times 3 is going to be 30. Add 5 to that. 35 minus 4. So I'm going to put a rem out here because our answer is going to be 31. So remember, if you make your comments up at the top. So I'm going to put some comments here at the top. Author, me. For today's date is and we're going to say lesson 4. And lesson 4 is using numeric values. Sorry. Okay, so if it's in a block like this or even its own line, it's a comment or a block of comment. If it's behind a line of code, it's called a rem for remark. So basically we're putting in a rem here to tell us what our answer should be. So if we run this, answer is 31. Go ahead and look in your book and make sure that you can get this next line to print. So the 8 minus 5 times 6 divided by 3 plus 5 minus 6 times 3. And your answer should be minus 5. So give it a try. Make sure you get it typed in right. Go ahead and pause the video. So I just showed you how your Java program is the same as algebra. Now let's show you how it is different. So one thing that you can do is you can readjust P based on what P is. So we have double P equals 5 plus 10 times 3 minus 4, which is 31. So now I could come down here and say P equals P plus 3. So what we're doing is we're taking the answer 31 and we're going to add 3 to it. So we are redefining what P is based on what P was. So then come down and system.out.println P. And go ahead and run it. So now we have the answers 31 and 34. So what you can even do in Java is you can even define it by minus 3. And then we'll save your result as the new P. So in algebra, if you have P equals P minus 3, you'd subtract P from both sides and you have an invalid equation. But in Java, it works. And there's even a couple of shortcuts. So if you want to increase P by just 1, write P plus plus. No errors, go ahead and run it. You get 31 and 32. If you want P minus 1, you guessed it, P minus minus. Run it, 31 and 30. If you want to add 3 like we did initially, you do plus equals 3. Run it and it adds 3. If you want to subtract 3, you guessed it, change that minus or plus to a minus, and then run it. So when we did like P plus plus, that's called increment, and P minus minus is decrement. When you use a sign and an equal sign right next to each other, it's called a compound operator because basically you have an operator and equals right next to each other. You can also do this with all the different ones. So if you look in your book, it has a list of the different syntax and then what it means. So if you get lost or confused, like plus equals, so if you have your example x plus equals 3, it's really saying x equals x plus 3. Minus equals, so if you have x minus equals y minus 2, you're saying x equals x minus y minus 2. You can also have times equals, you can have divide equals, and you can have modulus equals. And it doesn't matter which one you choose. So if you have P minus equals 3, it subtracts 3 for you. Or if you put in P equals P minus 3. It really doesn't matter. It gives you the exact same result. So whichever way you are more comfortable with it, that is fine. But just know that your new P will take the place of your old P. So even though those two lines are identical, we're changing the value in between. So that is kind of our key lesson here. So you can use P equals P minus 3 or P minus equals 3. It does not matter to me either way, but you need to know that they're the same thing. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to change what we have in the top up here. So not just lesson 4 using numeric values, but we're going to call this increment, decrement, and compound operators. That's what we're working on right now. So we're going to leave double P, but we're also going to initialize in the same line. So we're going to declare initialize another value, so we're going to call it Q. Double Q will be equal to 2. So I'm going to delete those two lines and we're going to outprint P. So we're going to say that P plus equals Q. So we're going to add it together. So come outside and put a remark. So this adds P and Q. And we're going to go through, and I'm going to actually comment all of these lines out. P minus equals Q subtracts Q from P. Comment out P plus plus put a comment at the end and say adds 1 to P, P minus minus, add, subtracts 1 from P, P times equals Q, multiplies P and Q, and P divided by equals Q. Divides Q into P. Alright, so what I want you to do is I want you to, one by one, take the comments off, run it. So this may take you a minute. Put your comment on, test it, make sure it works, put the comment back on. Keep running it and make sure it works. You can pause the video if you need to. E plus plus should give you 32. E minus minus should give you 30. Multiplying them should give you 62. Dividing them should give you 15.5. Alright, so leave all this stuff in comment mode. And so I'm going to put in some space. And honestly, for Java, you can use as much space as you like. Space does not mean anything in the coding world. So basically, organize yourself the way that you can so that you can read it and so that I can read it. It makes my job a lot easier to grade you and to give you all of the points you deserve if there's plenty of spaces for me to be able to read stuff. So I'm going to leave that up there, but we're going to look at this increment. So if you look the way it is talked about in your book, if you put the plus plus or minus minus after, it's going to increment or decrement it after it's used in the statement. If you have the plus plus or minus minus before you use it, it's going to be used in that statement. So before you use it, it will work out that way. So let's test it out. So I'm going to go up here and say P is equal to 3, Q is equal to 4, and we're going to change declaring to an int. We're going to leave them as integers. So we're still going to outprint P. So we have 3 and 4. So I'm going to change my outprint. So I'm going to say P is space plus P plus, we're going to put a new line in here. Q is space plus Q. So let's test our code. So one of the best things that you can do with Java also is run it as soon as you put in a new line. If you don't have something in there, you need to put that in first, but run things one by one so that you kind of know if it's working or not. So it printed out an error here, which just means that my slash was going the wrong way. Let's try it again. Perfect. So let's change Q. So I'm going to get it down here. We can see it, and we'll say int Q equals plus P plus 2. So since the plus plus is before, it's going to increment P, so we should get 4 plus 2, so it should print out that P is 4 and Q is 6. Let's run it. There's an error. What did we do? We left a semicolon off of there. So now that we're fixed, press run. P is Q, 4 is 6. So this made P go to 4 right before it added 2, so then it's 4 at the end. Now, let's add P plus plus instead of plus plus P. So basically what we're saying is that right here, P is going to be 3, so Q should be 5. But down here, it's going to increment it after this line, so it's going to print that P is 4 and Q is 5. Let's run it and test. P is Q, 4 is 5. So turn this in, and you are now ready to go into your book and do project cheating on your arithmetic assignment.